It shapes every aspect of life in Northern Ireland: housing, education, employment, sport and leisure, and of course politics. Sectarianism manifests itself in countless ways, most obviously in the physical separation of communities, whether it be through the misnamed peace walls or the marking out of territory through flags, paint, and sectarian graffiti. There is almost a total failure to acknowledge the extent of sectarianism and the need to challenge it amongst the political class and many of our people. Confronting and defeating sectarianism remains a key task in the struggle to build a socialist alternative. The numbers are stark. 90% of the Northern Ireland House of Executives estates are defined as single identity. That in effect means 80% of the inhabitants are identified as either Catholic or Protestant. A larger proportion of children, 93%, are educated in schools that are overwhelmingly Catholic or Protestant. Only 7% of children are in integrated education. These figures come despite a pledge in the Belfast Agreement of '98, and I quote, to facilitate and encourage integrated education and mixed housing. The financial cost of sectarianism was estimated in 2007 at up to 1.5 billion per annum in public spending. The number of sectarian crimes recorded by the PSNI grew between 2012 and 13 and 2013 and 14. There were almost 3 a day. Such numbers, however, tell only part of the damage done to our society by the cancer of sectarianism. Sectarianism can only be tackled through a comprehensive assault, not only on its manifestations, but also on the material conditions and assumptions that support it. This requires not only state intervention and legal measures such as the Bill of Rights, as referred to earlier by Jerry, and laws specifically targeting sectarianism, but also active campaigning by people's organisations such as trade unions and community groups. Sectarian attitudes must be changed, and that cannot be done by laws alone. Fighting sectarianism is the first duty of socialists and progressives within Northern Ireland. Let me repeat that. Fighting sectarianism is the first duty of socialists and progressives in Northern Ireland. Class consciousness cannot grow where workers remain fundamentally divided. We must work on all fronts and alliance with others to create a sense of common citizenship and common interest. At all points, we must stress the common interests of the working class. The construction of a common identity, and especially a class identity, lies at the heart of the struggle against sectarianism. And yet, if there was an election tomorrow, we know that most people in Northern Ireland would vote for parties which are systematically, irreversibly, and unapologetically sectarian. Whether they wish to deny that or not, that's the fact. Some of the hard questions that must be asked about this tribal debacle are the ones that Sinn Féin and DUP voters in particular must ask of themselves. While jobs are being lost, prices rising, homes being repossessed, child poverty increasing, and thousands of people across the city facing a daily eat or heat dilemma. And while they even carve up territory and insist houses are built not on class or needs basis, but on them and us. In fact, there's times when they can't even agree on that. So prime housing development land lies idle or is sold to private business in the name of profit. Or they turn a blind eye whilst local paramilitaries fill their filthy coffers by using the land for illegal activities. Whilst all of this goes on, these parties use flags, emblems, language, culture, marches and rites as a smokescreen for their failure to even address these issues. Sinn Féin and DU supporters must now ask themselves, do I really want to vote for a party that is happy to ignore social and economic realities to secure their own tribal positions? And there's the rub. The sectarian problems in Northern Ireland are not due to the politicians, nor a small minority. They are due to the persistence of a sectarian mindset among the majority of people in Northern Ireland. These sectarian parties certainly do all they can to keep us divided, but until people ask themselves the hard questions, until they are prepared to look for an alternative to both unionism and nationalism, things will not change. There's no doubt, there's no point deploring the excesses of a political and social system of virtual religious apartheid if you embrace the system yourself. That is why the sectarian sham fighting of the parties works. The problems in Northern Ireland society haven't gone away. The only people that benefit are the middle classes who make a nice living. The kids go to grammar schools and university, get professional jobs, while working class kids, families are sacrificed from the age of 11 onwards. There's no easy path to university for working class kids. And as a result of our education system, they must work all that harder with less resources to get the opportunity to attend university. Even then, they're faced with a crippling system of student loans, which effectively deters working class families from even considering university education. Neither unionism nor nationalism can address the problems that face the working class. But paradoxically, when the trade union movement is relatively strong, class consciousness is very low. The sectarian mindset dominates virtually unchallenged across most of Northern Ireland. This is the reality which socialists and progressives must face and overcome through raising genuinely secular, anti-sectarian and progressive politics. At the time of the Good Friday Agreement, we realised its limitations and expressly noted that it failed to reflect many of the concerns raised by our party over the 30 previous years. However, we welcomed the agreement at that time as a realisation of the hopes of the people and as an opportunity to advance our long-standing and consistent party programme of anti-sectarianism, peace, work democracy and class politics. The primary limitation which the party identified was the institutionalising of sectarianism within the spirit, content and the structures of the agreement. Since that time, the repeated failures, refusals and crises that have stemmed are exacerbated by this central weakness. In attempting to address the divisions in Northern Ireland, the agreement placed division at the heart of the agreement. Based and grounded its structures on sectarian difference and failed to provide a mechanism for dealing with this deadly disease. Instead of tackling the issue head on of sectarian division, the very institutions of government are based on that division. It remains a political reality, despite the rhetoric to the contrary, that political institutions are based on and operate within an agreed framework of sectarian division. An institutional framework which incorporates sectarianism at its core, and an assembly and executive which effectively manage sectarianism rather than seeking to eradicate it. That, Chairperson, is my contribution to this discussion. However, I have not even touched on integrated education and the effrontery, the so-called shared education. I spent no time on issues such as shared housing, peace walls, or a single teacher training college. I have not dealt with sectarianism as a criminal offence, but I hope others will do so in the discussion that follows. I said at the start that sectarianism is more widespread, more ingrained and more accepted now than at any time over the last 50 years. Unfortunately, that is true. The evidence is all around us. It hides not in the shadows, not muttered under people's breath, not behind closed doors, but in plain sight. Our task remains, as it always has been, to challenge it, to overcome it, and to replace it with a socialist, secular, and class-based society. We in the Workers' Party will never give up on that struggle. Thank you.
I'm now opening this up to some.
Thank you. Well done. Awesome. Excellent stuff. I just want to add a few things to what you've already said, and hope they'll do justice in the way that you presented the obscenity that is sectarianism in society. I want to start by just saying that there's an industry growing around sectarianism, and it grows on an almost daily basis. And it's fed by mainstream politicians, by the media, by commentators, by some academics, and by the myriad of people whose livelihood now depends on perpetuating and consolidating sectarianism in the society. And they all subscribe and contribute to a pernicious vocabulary that seeks to normalise, ingrain and accept sectarianism as either an inevitable fact of life or a problem so complex that we need to dance around it rather than to confront it. And they talk about learning curves, and they talk about defensive architectures, and they talk about creative solutions, and very often, at enormous expense, they produce multi-agency, cross-community, interface-friendly, separate but equal, blue sky thinking, out-of-the-box solutions. And they are nothing of the sort. They just kick the problem down the road for another generation, and they continue to manage the interfaces, and they do very nicely out of it, thank you. The way the issues of sectarianism are addressed in Northern Ireland is nothing short of criminal. And maybe even the bigger crime is that they get away with it. And they get away with it because they are supported and covered by the myriad of accomplices who benefit from, sustain, secure and feed the sectarian structures. The churches, the state, almost all local political parties, the education sector, cultural bodies, sporting organisations, and of course, my favourite, the media. Sectarianism today, as Austin said, is arguably a bigger problem than it has ever been. And it still kills workers because it is deliberately designed to sustain division and fend off any form of class unity in this country. And yet, how comfortably people slip into the debate and how comfortably they rationalise it. You'll find no one in Northern Ireland who is sectarian. It's always someone else. It's always them's. And even us. It's always them's, it's never us. And even the concept of us is inherently sectarian, because there cannot be an us without a them, and already the division lines are drawn. And when the professional middle classes, representatives of the larger parties, the media, the churches, and the men and women in the street talk comfortably and confidently about the two communities, what exactly do they mean? Do they mean the rich and the poor? Do they mean the homed and the homeless? Do they mean the employed and the unemployed? No. They are referring unmistakably and unapologetically to Catholics and Protestants. So what is it that so significantly presents these theological differences between Catholics and Protestants in Northern Ireland? What is it that justifies 26 miles of peace walls in Belfast alone, separate education systems, effectively separate languages, imagined cultures, and an industry to manage all of them? Is it about the diet of worms? Is it about the mystery of transubstantiation, or some issue around the Reformation? No, it's none of the above. Whatever solace individuals may derive from organised religions, let's be absolutely clear, crystal clear. about their political, social and economic function in this society. Their role is to divert, to confuse, to mystify and to subject on behalf of the dominant economic system. It is not a consequence of their actions, it is the very purpose of their being. Look at Northern Ireland for the past 40 years, or Ireland for the past 400 years, if you have the time and the temperament. Individual exceptions aside, churches and organised religion have contributed to, underpinned, consolidated and secured the sectarian division of this society. Individual exceptions, they have also perpetuated it, they have passed it on from generation to generation, and they have ingrained it in the schools, in the social strata, and they have legitimised it. But they have not been on their own. Political parties, political philosophies, paramilitaries, unscrupulous employers, and all those who have sought to seek an advantage and turn a quick buck have all used and continue to use sectarianism as and when they see fit. And always, always, working class people and their families have borne the brunt and been the victims. But we not only analyse society and the ills that it has, we offer solutions. As in many cases, to engage with those who pretend to seek progress, those who feign concern and then blow smoke and mirrors, smoke across the mirrors they've used to deflect the debate. To engage on their level and on their terms is not only a waste of time, but an abdication of class responsibility, or at least it is most of the time. On this occasion, I think we should take their sectarian lexicon, their divisive vocabulary, and their mean-nothing phrases and turn them right back at them and their political parties, the paramilitaries, the holier-than-thou brigade, and the con men and women of bogus and offensive initiatives like Sinn Féin's Stand Up Against Sectarianism, and we should say to them, here's some blue sky thinking for you. Here's some learning curves you might want to jump on, and here's a few creative solutions. Let's start with implementing full integrated education system from nursery to third level. Let's have a single teacher training college for all students, for all student teachers. Let's legislate to make sectarianism a crime. Let's prioritise resource and make statutory provision for integrated housing projects right across Northern Ireland. Let's tear down the peace walls and their surrogates. Let's legislate for a comprehensive Bill of Rights, and let's start treating people in this country like citizens, not as members of rival tribes. The vested interests which have sustained and benefit from sectarian division deserve no cover, no eyeballs and no sympathy. As we heard earlier, and I'm going to use this quote again and again, sectarianism remains a defining reality of society in Northern Ireland and the biggest single obstacle to the development of class politics. Sectarianism is a class issue. We have no other take on that. It is a class issue. Never was the power of a united working class more relevant, more meaningful, and more necessary than in tackling the crisis of sectarianism. This party has a class responsibility to be at the forefront of that struggle. We know the array of forces ranged against us, but that should spur us on even more. Let's say it again, sectarianism remains a defining reality of this society. It is the biggest single obstacle to the development of class politics. This party needs to be the stealth dagger through the heart of sectarianism and through the heart of those who promote and profit from it, and in whatever form. There's no bigger issue to tackle. There's no better party to do it.
Can't really follow that or indeed Austin's initial response. But I'd just like to talk a little bit about the Sinn Féin so-called Stand Up to Sectarianism initiative. Whatever the hell it is. It's a lie, and thanks, Jerry. It's a lie, and we have to stand up against that because they don't have difficult conversations. They have conversations that suit them. Because their idea of sectarianism is, as Bran was saying, it's them's who are responsible for sectarianism, and that automatically makes the debate a sectarian debate, because we know that them's are frauds and us'ns, according to Sinn Féin, are Catholics. It's bloody ridiculous, and we need to sharpen our stealth dagger on that one, move on that one. And just on another point, sectarianism is worse than it's ever been, I agree, in many, many ways. But there's also hope in terms of opinion polls. So the Northern Ireland Life and Times survey is an annual survey of people here. And you know, people are overwhelming majorities are routinely in favour of integrated education, integrated workplaces, integrated living spaces. They want the flags down. They want them down. They want all of these things that would be fundamental to our politics. And large numbers of them are when they're asked, are you nationalist, unionist, or neither? Large numbers of them, particularly among the young, are neither. And there's a sociologist at Queen's, or something like that, and she says that she believes that people in the quiet of the voting booth, they vote for us'ns because they want to keep the worst of them's out. So she's sort of suggesting that lots of people are anti-sectarian in their everyday practice, but when it comes down to it, they still vote us and them. So and we need to create a breach between the voting booth and you know, that kind of thinking. We need to continue what we're doing.